Hello and welcome to Teal Tinted Glasses, episode number 62. I only know that because it's the title I gave this thing when I set it up. Fired, injured, and traded. Good news that none of us, that applies to neither me nor Jerk. Neither of us, at least to my knowledge, have been fired. To my knowledge, we're both not injured, and I don't think either of us have been traded. But the night is young, could happen. I know Jerk wasn't skating before we started the podcast, so you know what that means. Trade watch is on. Sorry, Jerk.
Yeah, well, so here's what happened is, I got to the rink today, and everything was going well, and then I had to leave early, and I was getting tweets and texts. Oh my God, have you been traded? Oh my God, what's going on? And I had a dentist appointment. So I mean, to eliminate any confusion, there have been no trades or signings or buyouts. There was a conversation with a part-time, we'll say, contributor to the show about a potential mid-season signing, but we're still trying to figure that out.
Right, absolutely. Vince, absolutely. I would love to chime in on that topic down the road a little bit. Just remind me if I forget.
We're a minute in, and we're already doing what Vince wants us to do.
Yeah, this is Vince's show. Let's be honest. I'm the puppet. Just the strings. There are plenty of strings on me. All right, so let's get started. I think we should start with Erik Karlsson, just because I'm sure this is a topic that's been beat to death by everything. But damn it, I haven't beat this topic to death yet, which means it's my turn. Damn it, my turn. Erik Karlsson, obviously skating but not playing. Are you mad? Like, at this point, are you angry that he played in the All-Star game since he hasn't played since?
I'm not at all. I think with the All-Star game, it's something for the fans. Obviously, it's not a real game. There's not 2 points on the line. There's, you're not going to have a coach breathing down your neck if you're playing passively. So I mean, I'm not really upset about it. I think you kind of knew he missed time before, and then all of a sudden he's able to go. I think you had to assume that it was for the fans. And to interrupt myself, Kevin, bringing up a very good point. This is the Teal Tinted Glasses podcast, in case we hadn't mentioned it already.
I could have swore I did.
I don't know. Whenever I see something that Kevin says, I'm always like, damn. Kevin's usually on top of. I was gonna say Kevin's usually on top of stuff.
All right.
Glad to be back. I know you went solo last time, and I tried to make it, but technology be damned. But here we are.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Back on to your point.
Who cares? It's for the fans. I don't believe that him playing in the All-Star game made things worse.
Yeah, that's kind of my thoughts too. Like, that's where I'm feeling about it right now, because I look at it and I understand how people could be upset about it, because it's like, except for the Sharks have been rolling without him. But at the same time, it's like it's not a real game. Like, it's 3-on-3, and even if it was 5-on-5 like it used to be, no one's getting hit. Like, yeah, he could have risked, I don't know, hitting a rut in the ice at SAP Center and, completely destroying his groin, which is what I think is what we think the injury may be. But all in all, I mean, I think it goes to show, because it's another topic that obviously we're going to get into with Erik Karlsson is his signing status. But I don't know, to me it kind of showed that he does like San Jose, because the All-Star game was in San Jose, and he made a point to show up. Would I like to see him back on the ice in a real game? Absolutely. But I don't know. I have hard time getting angry at him playing in a 3-on-3 shimmy, basically. Like, I don't know. To me, I understand why people would be upset, because they're like, oh, the regular season games are what matter, and the All-Star game's dumb. And I get that sentiment for sure, but I don't know. I can't be mad about it. Like, I would rather Erik Karlsson play in a real game where there's actual hitting and, people actually trying to win, when he's 100% not good enough to play the All-Star game, so good enough to play in an actual game. I don't know. I think it's overdone, and I understand, like, obviously, the joke of day to day to day to day. The only thing I think that would concern me if he hadn't played in the All-Star game was, it just kind of reminds me of how, during the Vegas series a couple years ago when Joe Thornton's knee was completely destroyed, that he was skating before each game, and I just like, and I think if it wasn't for the fact he's skating the All-Star game, I'd be like, I don't know, because now it's like he's skating before every game but not actually playing, and it kind of reminds me of that, because the Sharks are really stupid when it comes to injury stuff like this.
Yeah, and it's like that to this day, that whole, that thing of Joe Thornton skating, before the Vegas games,
Mhm.
I didn't really understand that, and I'm going to be a little cynical here, but if the Sharks' plan was to throw Joe Thornton out for warmups to give the other teams something to think about in terms of matchups, I don't think they're worried about Joe Thornton with one leg, running them up and down the ice. That's just me. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think with Erik Karlsson, I mean, you know what? Since the calendar flipped to 2019, the Sharks are the hottest team in the league,
Mhm.
and they've won 6 of their last 7, and I'm sure they've won even more games prior to that 7-game stretch. I just don't have the numbers on top of my computer right now, but the Sharks have the luxury of, you talk about over ripening prospects in the minor leagues. The Sharks have the luxury of overhealing Erik Karlsson.
Yep.
If say the Sharks are where Vegas are, third in the division, way back, Karlsson's probably playing. But because they're, again, don't want to get ahead of myself, but they're almost assured a playoff spot, and they're playing really good without him, just let him chill and go at his own pace.
Yeah, it's good. Christine and Cheryl in the chat, are there any rational fan bases? No, there's not. I mean,
No.
I know I like to pick on ours a lot, and I don't know why I do it. Just I think I don't know, makes me feel superior. Damn it. No, I know I pick on our fan base a lot, but most fan bases are dumb. Like and not that they're dumb. They all have that element of stupidity in their fan base. Every fan base has it.
Blind faith.
Yeah.
Blind faith. I mean, this is not the show where we drag the fans. That'll be next week.
Okay.
But but it's, yeah, I like Vince saying, fans are going to complain about him playing, or they're going to complain about him sitting. There's no in between, and it's the same. It's the same thing with trades. You recall Evander Kane trade last year. Oh my God, we gave up Danny O'Regan, who is on his way to becoming an unsigned RFA this year.
Right.
And a first that's at number 27.
Yeah.
But now
Right.
It's like, when the Sharks, this trade deadline, when the Sharks make 0 moves, and rightfully so, it's going to be like, well, we should have picked up Duchesne. We could have stacked it up. And yeah.
Oh yeah, we should have got Duchesne and Panarin, and we have all the assets to get all these guys.
We're going to trade Jones for Bobrovsky straight up.
Absolutely. Right. Like, it's just, I don't know. I mean, and I'm not like, I know that there's been like no contract talks, and I think that Sharks fans should be like, I'm not saying that there should be no concern here, because I think Doug Wilson went all in with the plan of Erik Karlsson being here a long time. But so I mean, the fact that there's no prospect talks, like no contract talks so far, sorry, that should be concerning. But I'm not incredibly concerned about it, because again, Erik Karlsson didn't have to skate in the All-Star game, and he did because it was here, and I think that that's a good sign. I worry about what that number might be for Erik Karlsson, but all in all, I'm not too concerned. Like, are you concerned right now? Like, overly concerned? I mean, obviously, I think everyone should be somewhat concerned, because let's be honest, if he's in a Eastern Conference sweater next year, that cost is steep.
Well, it's only if he's in an Eastern Conference team for this season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so they moved him at the deadline.
Yeah, which I mean brings the question: what if they were to trade him to Ottawa? Um, give us that first, and then we're going to give it right back to you. But I think I was concerned as soon as we acquired him. I mean,
Right.
he's a superstar, pending UFA who's going to cash in. And I'll tell you this right now: he's not making less than Drew Doughty, which, for your reference, is $11.5 million a season. He's not
Mm-hmm.
making less than Drew Doughty. So I've always been concerned in that respect. But in terms of like, oh my god, trade him now. Who are we going to sign? It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Sharks can't. The Sharks and Erik Karlsson can't pen to paper sign an extension until February 26th. So there is quote unquote still time.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, contracts can come. All it takes is for Doug Wilson to pick up the phone and say, "Hey, Eric, we want you back." And Eric says, "Great, I love the city." Bing,
Mm-hmm.
bang, boom, and you're out to lunch. And
Right.
that's it. I don't think it's going to be one of those situations where like I'm trying to think, like a Mark Stone or a Matt Duchene in Ottawa, where it's been weeks now, where it's like, well, I want 8 times 8. Well, we want to give you 8 times 7.5. It's not going to be like that. The Sharks know how good Erik Karlsson is. Erik Karlsson knows what San Jose is all about, and we've seen it the past 3 years. Doug Wilson's MO is to not waste assets. Like
Mm-hmm.
if he's going to make a big trade, it's because he thinks in his mind that he can keep the guy around. And we saw that with Evander Kane. And so I think whether or not Karlsson resigns with the Sharks, I think Doug Wilson is going to do everything in his power to at least try to make that happen.
Oh yeah, I don't. There's no doubt in my mind about that. I guess it just kind of. I think it's interesting though because when you look at the Erik Karlsson situation, I mean, without him having pen to paper, and again, there's still time, but you're heading into the trade deadline, which is got to be what, the 28th,
25th.
25th. Sorry. Okay, so you have till the trade deadline. With the trade deadline coming though, I mean, do you really want to? I mean, what assets are you going to spend depending on like Erik Karlsson really has to have an impact on their deadline plans. If you're Doug Wilson, like you don't really want to move too much at the deadline if you're worried about, if you don't have Erik Karlsson pen to paper, if I'm making any sense right now.
I think whether they get a deal with Erik Karlsson or not, I still think the plan is to be all in. And at the end of the day, I think Doug Wilson would trade 1 year of Erik Karlsson if it meant the Sharks won the Stanley Cup.
I don't mean specifically trading Erik Karlsson. I mean just moving other assets and then looking to next year where you've got guys signed long term. So like I'm not saying moving, but just not having Erik Karlsson under contract, so you don't know if you have Erik Karlsson next year, and then you move another couple of guys. Maybe you have to move a guy off the roster, and then I don't have anyone specifically. I'm just thinking like maybe let's just for argument's sake Justin Braun. Let's say you move Justin Braun at the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
And then you don't have Justin Braun or Erik Karlsson. I know it's a bad thing because I think most people want to launch Justin Braun into the sun at this point, so they wouldn't think that's a bad thing. But you know what I mean? Like I think it must be difficult for Doug Wilson without Erik Karlsson and pen paper because you have to also, you want to win this year, but you also have to look forward too. And I would hate to see what this team would look like next year if Erik Karlsson didn't come back. And let's say you moved to Kevin Labanc on top of that. And now you don't have either next year. And yeah, you have some interesting prospects in the system, but I don't think you have guys that are going to fill those roles specifically.
Yeah, it's a good point, which is why I'm kind of the belief that whether the Sharks win out between now and the trade deadline or whether they lose out, I still think they need to stay the course regardless.
And joining us now is Mr. Kevin Lacey. Mr. Kevin Lacey, hello.
Yes, here I am. No, thanks for having me, guys. Great conversation so far. Be sure to subscribe, folks. And yeah. Erik Karlsson, yeah, I do think the main concern, somebody's echoing. I hope it's not me. That's distracting. Hang on a sec.
Okay.
First show back, and we're still working things out. That's the beauty of live podcasting, right?
Yeah,
Does
absolutely.
somebody have the YouTube thing on not on mute right now? Because I don't even have it up at all.
Mine is not even run. It's paused.
Anyway,
I got nothing going.
Yeah, Erik Karlsson, though, I'm not concerned about his injury status right now, but the contract thing, yeah, that's something to be, just a little cautious on. You mentioned Kevin LeBanc, trading Kevin LeBanc. Like, who could the Sharks get for Kevin LeBanc? And I'm not saying like he has no value. I mean, like, who's available that they could get that they would need to trade Kevin LeBanc for? Like,
I just throwing names out.
Yeah, because I know because I'm saying that because there's either big fish or there's little guppies that we don't even know about, and LeBanc is going to pull neither. Like, they're not going to trade LeBanc for scraps, and they're not going to get any big fish. So I have heard, people talking about he needs to go, but you guys are exactly right. For what? And who's going to replace him next year?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing that concerns me, because I think look at Kevin LeBanc. I mean, I've obviously been a defender of Kevin LeBanc on the show a long time. Look, his defensive game, obviously, and I said this last week, his defensive game, yeah, there's problems with his defensive game. He is soft on the puck a little bit, and there are issues that he needs to do, but his playmaking and scoring ability, I mean, to get that as quickly as you got that from Kevin LeBanc coming into the league, like, you don't just replace that tomorrow. Like, if there was a guy like Kevin LeBanc on the Barracuda, he's on the Sharks right now.
Well, and are you going to trade away? Are you going to trade away a 22-year-old who's on pace for 54 points? Probably not.
Probably not. Well, you never know.
Unless the one instance where I see that happening is if one of these big fish that are allegedly available are coming back the other way, and the Sharks re-sign them.
Right.
Those
in that case, then you're all forgiven.
And that's what I'm saying. And those of you who have watched a hockey game in your life know that the percentage of that happening is somewhere between 1% and 4%.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing. I don't think you're trading Kevin LeBanc. Like, I really don't see it. But I mean, that's the thing. Dylan Gambrell came up, and a lot of people were talking about him possibly being a showcase. I think if the Sharks are to do anything, it's probably going to be like an Eric Fair type deal. I don't know if you move Dylan Gambrell in an Eric Fair type deal, but if you're the Sharks, I mean, what do you really have left at this point? Like, you're going to have to move something.
That's what worries me.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, we all have seen how well Sasha Chmelevski's been playing this year. That's what worries me. Especially because, let's say the Sharks, make it work, and Erik Karlsson and Pavelski and Joe Thornton and the whole band is back next year. You're probably going to need some sub-million guys to fill out that fourth line.
Yep.
And you can't just trade them away for rentals at this point. The Sharks have done their dealing. They just need to play with what they have.
Totally. I still feel, and I've been pretty adamant about it on social media, I still feel like they have room to acquire a guy like Jordy Ben. Mm-hmm. I don't know what they could give up to get him. They would have some leverage in the sense of he'd be an unrestricted free agent next year, and the fact that Mark Bergevin is known to get screwed from time to time. But again, I think, well, his value can't be too low. I mean, we are quite a ways away from when Craig Brevet was pulling a first-round pick and a top prospect, but nevertheless, Jordy Ben could end up going, if he goes, for more than what I think he's worth. And if you're the Sharks, I think you do have to stay away. But
I think it's like the second round pick, right? Like, that seems to be the going rate the last few years, and I don't Do the Sharks even have a second round pick?
No, they don't. They don't have a.
No, they
don't have
do.
a first,
They have,
second, or third.
They do have a second. They have Florida's.
Oh, well, there you go. You have Florida
Oh,
second.
okay.
So it's primed
They're
and
in
ready. It's primed and ready for whichever eighth defenseman wants it the most.
Yep, they're ready. Okay, you're right. Yeah, they have Florida's pick, so they've got some currency, or they could trade the 2020 second.
Too many
That's
futures. Too many futures.
Yeah, I look at like their picks, and it's kind of scary. It's a little bit scary.
Yeah, Doug Wilson Jr. is going to have his hands full between Euro scouting and late round draft picking. That's for sure.
Absolutely. I don't know. So I'm not. Yeah, I don't know what the heck to do. Joakim Ryan. That's a good question. Kuda Flossie, what do you think is going to happen with Joakim Ryan? I think Joakim Ryan is a guy who, for some reason, has fallen out of favor. I don't think through any real fault of his own. Yeah, there's a couple plays where I don't know. It's funny because like when you're in hockey, the younger guy, it seems like, and even from fans and from coaches alike, the younger guy, the mistake is so much more magnitude because you're not the established guy, whereas like another guy will make a mistake and they're like, yeah, well, whatever, blah blah blah. And I feel like Joakim Ryan is really has had that happen to him where like, yeah, I'm not saying Joakim Ryan is like played the perfect defensive game his entire tenure with the Sharks, but I feel like the mistakes he's made have been maybe overblown. That if Marc-Edouard Vlasic makes the same mistake, unless you're Kevin Kurz, you're not going after him too hard about it.
I just think, like you said, because he is a younger guy, right, and he's still very green in the league. I think you're right. It is magnified, and it's just one of those things where like any problems that I've seen have all been defensive mistakes that everybody makes at some point. It's not like
right.
he's throwing the puck over the glass from behind his own net or sliding on the ice like a damn starfish, but I digress.
Yeah, no. I agree. I don't know. I mean, I think that I just don't know what Joakim Ryan value is right now. Could I see Joakim Ryan get shipped out? Yeah, because for whatever reason, Šimek, and I'm not saying it's bad. Like I don't have anything against Šimek. I think that he plays obviously a more physical game than Joakim Ryan plays, and I think that's definitely helped him in the eyes of Peter DeBoer. I don't know what you do with Joakim Ryan, honestly. Tim Heed's another guy who, I think is probably on his last year in Teal. And I don't know what you do with Joakim Ryan at this point because if you send him down, he's going to get claimed on waivers. I strongly believe that. But yeah, so I really don't know. Like that's something where I'd love to just sit in the mind of Doug Wilson and kind of figure out where he sees a lot of these guys because there's definitely guys like Joakim Ryan who honestly I completely forgot was on the team until you mentioned it.
How do you guys feel about how Radim Šimek has played? Because to me, I did not see this coming. Maybe I saw this coming when he came straight out of the Czech Republic, but to me, Radim Šimek with the Sharks is not the player, and I mean this positively, not the player he was with the Barracuda last year. Like, I think he's night and day over the player that he was last year.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, it reminds me a lot of Timo Meier. Barracuda versus Timo Meier with the Sharks.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It is. It's a night and day difference. Like when, he plays like, he's playing a much better game in the NHL. I think that he does a lot of good things. I don't think Radim Šimek's this amazing defenseman, but is he completely serviceable NHL defenseman? Yeah. Absolutely. And I would not. I mean, going into the season, I said there was no chance Šimek would be keyed into the lineup, and yet here we are.
Yeah. Remember, I even said on one of these shows that the only reason Radim Šimek was on the roster was to be a practice partner for Tim Heed.
Right.
I thought he was gonna maybe get game 82 in and get scratched the first 81. Like, so hey, good on him. I think he's looked good. And the team has turned around with, I'm not saying he's the reason they turned around, but conveniently, the team has improved a lot since he got put in the lineup.
Yeah, well, and I like too. I like what you said, Ian, about how he's a more physical option than Joachim Ryan, but he's still a very good skater. You know,
Yes.
which I think is important for this league. You know, you need to have that good blend of everything, all the intangibles, especially as a young defenseman trying to break in. But you know, you both know it's been stated multiple times when he first came over from the Czech Republic and joined the Barracuda, I had high hopes, and they were immediately thrown in my face. And
yeah, me too, man.
And now here we are a year and a half later, and he's looking like a guy who maybe will be something for the Sharks. And kind of going back to what we were saying regarding Erik Karlsson, if he's coming back at $11.5 million a season, you're gonna need sub 1 million guys to play with your big dogs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I think Šimik coming in, I think the one thing that was happening a lot, and early on, and I know we talked about this before, was that like even in the initial Karlsson-Vlasic pair, they were getting moved off the puck a lot. Like there's a lot of plays that were caused by defensemen just being moved off the puck. And I feel like Šimik, at least for his part, has, changed that a little bit. Like obviously you're not moving Brent Burns off the puck, you're not moving Šimik off the puck, and then by splitting up, Brendan Dillon, I feel, he's hard to move off the puck. And Vlasic's game has come around. Justin Braun's just Justin Braun at this point. But I feel like they needed that because they just had too many defensemen, and this is not Joachim Ryan's fault. He was just one of too many guys that was just a little too easy to move off the puck. And with Joachim Ryan, I mean, he's 5'0". That's the problem.
I have two things that I want to mention. Number one, I still stand by it. My favorite Šimik moment from this season was in his first NHL game when they had pressure in the offensive zone and Burns started to skate towards the opposite point, and Šimik was like, no, you stay over there.
Get over there, Mr.
Easily
$8 million veteran.
Yeah, Mr. Norris Trophy. Easily one of my favorite things from the season. But you mentioned Brendan Dillon, and you don't have to elaborate, simple yes or no, but has Brendan Dillon been the Sharks' best defenseman this year?
Yes.
He's been good. I don't know. I don't want to say the best.
Well,
no. And what I've seen, he's been very good though. Like for a guy who used to be my punching bag, he's not anymore.
Yeah, I mean, if you take away offensive numbers, just looking strictly at defensive play, I think it's been Brendan Dillon.
Yeah. Defensively, yes, and I think he's been the most consistent. I still think Karlsson's been the best Sharks defenseman this season overall. But yeah, I think Dillon should get all the praise for the way he's played this season and hopefully continues it through the playoffs. I'd hate for this to be like the year that Dillon, becomes a top 3 defenseman and then the playoffs just something melts down and it's like, oh God,
right.
Like I hope that he holds this awesome play the whole way through.
Yeah, no, I think that's really fair. Any other Shark stuff we should hit? I feel like
goaltending. Are you guys happy?
Goaltending. No.
What's up?
No.
You're not. Nobody's ever happy with the goaltending, huh?
No. I mean, look at the Sharks have been winning, and that's good. But I just think overall, like the Sharks are winning in spite of Martin Jones, not because of Martin Jones.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that.
Like I don't want to beat this to death because last week I really beat on Martin Jones pretty badly. But I mean, the numbers are out there. Yes, the Sharks gave up a few more chances, but Jones and Dell together have been awful, like way below average. Yes, do the Sharks give up more high danger chances than they should? Yes. The goalie should still stop a hell lot more than they are.
Can I bring up something that like nobody has talked about all year?
Yes.
So obviously the goaltending equipment changed this year, and I'm not saying it's all the goaltending equipment, but around the league, save percentages are about 0.12 down across the board. So yeah, Jones and Dell, their numbers suck this year, but everybody's numbers suck this year except for like Gibson. Gibson is having this monumental year at a 914 save percentage or something
Yeah.
like that. Like,
but considering what's in front of him, I mean, 914 is pretty impressive when you look at.
That's why it's monumental. But yeah, outside of like the top couple of goalies, everybody's dropped. Fleury's what, 902 or something like that?
Yeah, well, that's about par for the course.
But
it's an interesting point, though.
No, and it's a very good point too, because we've seen, we're seeing a lot more goal scoring too. I mean, just
how many point per game players do we have this year?
That's what I'm saying. I believe, and I could be a little hokey on these numbers, but I believe that we being the NHL are on pace for the most 100-point scorers in like 25 seasons.
Yeah,
something. It's ridiculous how many. I mean, Nikita Kucherov's already at 90 points, and we got a third of the season to go.
I don't even know, and I don't even know what to make, because who your save percentage leader in the entire league is right now?
I've forgotten.
Thomas Greiss.
Oh, has he played enough games to qualify?
Played 30.
Well,
that qualifies.
I don't know. Islanders are leading their division, so
true. I'm just saying, that's the thing, though. I mean, it's been a wonky year, and I think equipment does have, I think there is something to be said about that with the equipment. I agree.
I heard that's great because I forgot Thomas Greiss is having an amazing season. Remember, he was among the league's worst last year. Remember who that story was a few years ago? Devin Dubnyk, who came in and helped Devin Dubnyk turn his career around. Mitch Korn.
You know what?
Who came into the Islanders this year and has turned Greiss around. Mitch Korn.
And Robin Leonard, who is also sporting a 929.
Another goalie.
Obviously Vasilevsky with a 927, Ben Bishop with a 924, which I would not have guessed.
Considering Dallas is losing.
Frederick Anderson 923, not really surprising. Kudobin also a 922. And then it's Jarl Halak with 29 games.
But the goalies, except for Bishop.
Right.
The goalies you're mentioning, they're all smaller goalies. Leonard's 6'3", I think. So Leonard and Bishop. Everyone else, like Kudobin and guys like that, even Greiss, those are smaller goalies by comparison to the all-stars. So they're used to being small in net and relying on their athleticism and whatnot. And I think that's why those are the kinds of guys that are up at the top.
Yeah.
Because the equipment's not a factor for them.
No, and that's probably a good point. It's funny though, because I don't, and I might have missed it, but I don't really I know that there are some goalies that were really vocal about the equipment changes. I don't remember either of the Sharks goalies being one of them.
Yeah, they weren't the most vocal, but just based on indirect comments and opinions, they appeared to be the most suffering from it. And then quickly, just to jump back onto, I think it was what you said, Ian, there are at least, and again, this is just a quick glance, there are at least 50 guys right now who could be 82 and 82 or better by the end of the season.
That's insane.
Yeah. I think scoring's up for sure. And that's not saying, but it just seems weird to me though, that some of the, if you look at some of the other top teams in the league though, their goaltenders have fared a lot better. If you look at, in my opinion, who are legit Stanley Cup contenders, a lot of these teams, their goaltending isn't where the Sharks goaltending is.
Sure. When you look at the de facto number one guys, Jones and Dell's not a de facto number one, but Jones is near the bottom. If you're to take the top 31, he's down near the bottom. No denying
down near the bottom. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I look at other teams. I mean, Pekka Rinne is only a 915, which is a little bit down for him. But again, Nashville definitely, a team that you would consider near the top. New York Islanders, I don't know if I would call them a legit cup contender, but they're definitely they're going to be a playoff team for sure. Vasilevsky, I think Tampa Bay favorite to win the cup. Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that. I think the Leafs, I don't know if the Leafs are a cup favorite, quote unquote, but I mean, adding Jake Muzzin has seemed to really help stabilize that defense core. And, again, 9-2-4. I mean, there's a lot of guys. Boston, I think Boston could still be, a team to watch out for. 9-20. I don't know. I look at that and then I look at Jones, and if we don't see playoff Jones, man, I don't think it's going to be a very long playoff run. Like, I don't know. I mean, Jacob Markstrom has a 9-11. Like,
the thing that makes or keeps me optimistic is that the Sharks are the hottest team in the league right now, despite having pitiful goaltending.
Yeah,
and I mean, I do agree that it does need to get better, but I don't know. Like, I could see some weird, stupid thing happen where like the Sharks goaltending just continues to not play very well all year, but it's like, hi, we're in the Western Conference Final. Like
could be, but I mean,
with how this season has gone.
But I think the thing that would concern me is, yes, scoring is up during the regular season this year. Is scoring going to be up during the playoffs? Because that's when goaltending really comes into play. The Sharks aren't, the Sharks, I don't know if they're going to be able to rely on just scoring 7 goals a game to make it through a playoff series. Like, that's where my concern would be with goaltending. Because I don't think 7 goals a game, or not that they're scoring 7 goals a game regularly, but you know what I mean? Like, I get concerned that when the goals start to be harder to come by in the playoffs, like they generally are, that's when your goaltending needs to step up. And I think that's where the Sharks could be at a disadvantage based on what we've seen so far this year. Again, I'm hoping playoff Martin Jones comes back and all this is a moot point, but at least you have to kind of be concerned about it.
That show. I just want the bring Coronash up rumor.
Let's stop
that talk nonsense. To stop. He's not even playing that well right now with the Barracuda. Like, come on.
Well, right now, no, but I think on the whole, he's played very well.
Oh yeah,
but
definitely. But
he's. I mean, it seems to me he's playing more than Bibeau.
He is,
and
no, he's not.
Oh no, okay.
No, there's still an even split.
Yep, okay, very good point, Kevin. He's playing better than Bibeau.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm not saying trade Dell and call up Coronash and that go with that. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying, like, if I don't know, there's a multitude of things to consider here. If you do, if Dell wants to be a starter somewhere else and you move him and you take a different route, I mean, at least the Sharks have some kind of promising future in that department.
I definitely think this is Dell's last season with the Sharks. So
I think that's fair. I think the thing that, like, it always annoys me, right? Because you get like a hot hand in the Barracuda and it's like, oh my God, we need to call this guy up and blah, 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 blah. Like,
right. Perron, what's Perron done the last 20 games?
I mean, and this isn't new. I mean, there was a long time where it was like, oh, we're going to trade this guy and we're going to bring Grosnick up and blah, 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 blah. Like,
right.
We had this before. I just think people just need to remember the difference between the competitive, like, just the skill level in the NHL to the AHL. Like, it's still, like, that's a jump still.
Oh yeah.
Like,
look at poor DiPietro now.
Yeah. I mean, it's, that's a jump. And it's not like this seamless transition where, guy does good in the AHL, so he's automatically going to do good in the NHL. There's guys that have done really well in the AHL that just couldn't keep a roster spot in the NHL for whatever reason.
Yep.
Troy Gross,
Jason LaBarbera.
Sure. And you can even translate that to skaters too. Like, there's many non goalies that have been really good in the AHL that, never really could hold down a spot in the NHL for whatever reason. I think Coronash has done way better. Like, he's way exceeded my expectations for what I expected of him this year.
Yeah.
But I would be still let some of these guys, like, Coronash, this is his first season in North America. Let him be. Just let him.
What's the rush? He's still gonna be here when he's 24.
Right. No, exactly. Like, the guy's young. I don't understand this need to, like, just, this knee-jerk reaction. This guy must come up. This guy must come up. Like, let these guys get comfortable at that level and then, naturally progress to the next level instead of just forcing them up. Because it doesn't always work. I mean, to jump ahead a little bit, Edmonton's talking about possibly trading Jesse Puljujarvi. Jesse Puljujarvi is a guy that I still think's a stud. I just think he just needs time. And I think he was just thrown to the wolves too quickly, but because you're Edmonton, what choice do you have? Killer Yamamoto, same idea. I think the kid, like we were all super high on Killer Yamamoto when he was drafted.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I'm still a believer, but again, these guys are cautionary tales of what happens when you bring people up to the NHL too early.
And don't support them with good veteran players.
Right, exactly. Like the Vancouver Canucks almost drew in Jake Virtanen doing the exact same thing. I mean, there was a time where Jake Virtanen was completely a lost cause and everyone thought he was done. And now he's obviously not, thank God. But, but then on the other hand, a guy like Jared McCann's on his 13 now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was right there with Virtanen looking lost and overwhelmed and bewildered. So
yeah, and McCann was was comparable to Logan Couture when he was drafted.
I wanted Jared McCann so bad.
So did I.
When he was on the board and the Sharks didn't take him.
I had when the Sharks drafted Goldobin, I had Demko and McCann 1 and 2 on my draft board, and they both went to Vancouver, and I was like, why? One of those guys might pan out, the other one hasn't. And Goldobin hasn't either. And he's on Vancouver. Oh, go figure.
Yeah, I myself, I'm very cautious when it comes to drafting goalies in the first round, but yeah, I thought Demko was a slam dunk in the first round for the Sharks, especially with all the turmoil at that time surrounding goaltending. In my head, I'm like, Demko's got to be the guy here. No.
Yeah.
And evidently it was not the case. The guy was Goldobin, who became Yannick Hansen, who became nothing.
Yay.
Speaking of goaltending, how about a team that's only got goaltending and nothing else?
Yeah, last week I was very adamant that the Anaheim Ducks would not fire Randy Carlyle because what the hell difference would it make? And so of course he was fired. That's what happens. The reverse jinx, apparently.
It's we keep the tradition going, or the reverse. Yeah, I guess.
I feel like we were really good one season, and then we had the reverse jinx the next season, and then the season after. Have we been doing this that long? Holy crap!
Yeah.
And then the season after, we were like, we just couldn't win to save our lives. Like I think I tried to get every time I tried to get a coach fired, they ended up turning around. Hi, Paul Maurice.
Okay, but that's the thing is how many times prior to last season, how many times did we fire Paul Maurice? Almost every show.
Right.
And now here he is. If he can figure it out with Laine, might be up for Coach of the Year. Honestly,
Jack Adams is going to be really interesting this year.
Yeah, it's not the slam dunk it was last year with Gallant.
No, I think it's going to be really interesting this year. There's a couple of guys that are really going to be interesting choices. Maybe not because I think the entire league has been fired at this point. I don't think there's I think the Sharks are the only team that still have the same coach that they started the season with. Could be wrong. I guess Tampa, a few others, but
we tried to get him fired.
Oh, the bloodbath! This year has been a bloodbath for NHL coaches. Compared to I think last year, not one coach was fired during the season, and then this year's been a bloodbath. I can't. It's. I think you would have an easier time naming teams that still had the same coach than trying to name all the teams that changed coaches.
Yeah. What do you guys think of Mr. Bob Murray as head coach? Yeah.
I think he should see firsthand the mess he's made.
Yep. Oh, wow.
All right. I just want to say really quickly, 2016-17, which was the first full season we were doing this podcast.
Okay.
5-0 on getting coaches fired. 5-0. Last season, and again, this is as of February 18th February 7th of last year. We were 0-2. So kind of mixed bag there. But no, I think I don't know. I look at Anaheim's roster. Honestly, Gibson should be in the Vezina conversation for what he's done this year alone, and he should probably win it. But I look at Gibson and I look at that defense, like even with parting with Shea Theodore and Sami Vatanen, like that defense is still, in my mind, one of the best in the league. And for whatever reason, they're just allowing Gibson to just get shell shocked every game. And their leading goal scorer has 13 goals.
Well, that's the problem, right? Like, I feel like the problem isn't the Ducks' defense. It's the fact that the defense, can't do anything without, like, that forward core, for whatever reason, just doesn't work.
Yeah, there's going to be Nikita Kucherov is going to end up having more points than the entire Ducks team have goals by the end of this season. That's not factually true. I'm just saying, like, that's how poor
it might be. I mean, like, their leading scorer has 13 goals, and Kucherov's already at 92 points, so anything is possible. I don't know. I mean, when we saw this too with the Tampa Bay Lightning, 2-3 years ago, where they were right in the middle of their hot run that they're on right now, and all of a sudden nothing was going right for them. And I think we're kind of seeing that this year with Anaheim. I mean, I'm being very cautious, but my love for Rickard Rakell is well documented, and Ryan Getzlaf is still a stud. I don't care what anybody says, still a stud. And
can you repeat that? You cut out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just saying, Rickard Rakell having a down year, he's still good. Ryan Getzlaf is still a stud. The Ducks have it's not a lot, I'll give you that, but they have some above average talent on that team who should be playing better, that just aren't. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I wouldn't be surprised to see the Ducks right back in the playoff hunt next year, honestly.
Hey, look who went on waivers today. Brian Gibbons,
who is single-handedly making my top line happen in my dynasty league.
He was a guy that I thought, maybe a waiver pickup or a late trade pickup, like the Eric Fair one last year. He was a guy I thought maybe. But yeah, you're right about that roster is still solid, especially the back end. I mean, they've got Fowler, Lindholm, Manson, and Montour, who I speak highly of all four of those guys.
Yeah.
Then you've got Del Zotto, who's not great, but I mean, he's
an
to
NHL
be your.
defenseman.
What's up?
He said he's an NHL defenseman.
He's an NHL defenseman, yeah. And if you got him stacked up on your third pair, that's no problem. The question is Magna or Welinski right now on the team, and to me, it's like, well, that's your number 6th guy. You can try some things out. I mean, and see what sticks at that, especially now that the Ducks are, for all intents and purposes, out of the playoff hunt, despite the fact they're still not.
Right. I think they're like mathematically out right now.
Well,
right.
And
go ahead.
So I was just going to say their defense, like, it's been a farm for years. They've had a very saturated market in terms of defense. It's been a very good crop yield for them the last few years, and
definitely.
I mean, we saw they say they trade exactly Mahura, and they traded Marcus Pettersson for Daniel Sprong, which I don't think was talked about nearly enough.
Oh man, I know Pittsburgh fans were really pissed, and I think rightfully so, because I liked Marcus Pettersson, Shaleftio guy, of course I did, but Daniel Sprong, man, like that, he killed it for Wilkes-Barre Scranton last year, and I couldn't believe the Penguins gave him up. So that was a win for Bob Murray for sure.
But I feel like his wins have been fewer and farther between, at least on the trade. Like, I think signing and drafting, I think he's done okay. I think trading his record's been pretty abysmal. For things he's sent out for what he's gotten back, like they haven't worked out.
Yeah, and that's why I put out the tweet. He had that quote about, if there's an opportunity to get younger and faster, we're going to do it. It's like, San Diego was the 3rd best team in the American Hockey League, just behind the Barracuda and the Penguins 2 years ago. Right. And remember how scared we were as Barracuda fans of playing the goals in the second round?
Yep.
And the reason that we handed them handled them so easily was because the Ducks called up all the goals in the playoffs.
Right. Yeah, they did. No, the Ducks completely torpedoed the goals.
And now, where are all those guys outside of Kasha and Richie? They're all on other teams right now. Like, that was your opportunity to get younger and faster.
Well, I think that's the problem, right? Because this is a cap team. Let's be honest. This is an internal budget team. This team has an internal cap, and
those are all $1 million guys. Like what you guys were saying.
But you still have to. I mean, you still had the. I mean, at that point, you still had the Kevin BXs and the.
Well, yeah, that's true.
And I mean, I think the biggest problem on this team being a internal cap team is Corey Perry at this point. Corey Perry's making a lot of money to do jack squat. And I don't know if Corey Perry, I would, at this point, if I'm the owners of the Ducks, it's going to hurt, but I'm going to buy out that contract.
See, I look at that Corey Perry deal, and you're right. He is getting paid a lot to do nothing. But I want to say he doesn't have a lot of time left on that deal. I believe it's either 1 or 2 years after this year. So yes, it hurts, but it's gonna go away in a decent amount of time. Versus you look at Ryan Kessler, who's making, he's making less dollars per year, but he's got a lot of years after this season of, he's literally broken. There was concerns that he may not even play this year.
Right.
Kessler,
Kessler too. I mean, that's the other problem, right? This team is some of these forwards are held together with duct tape, but I mean, that's the problem. I mean, Getzlaf can't do it alone. I think Getzlaf
with duct tape, really?
Yeah, you got it. Duct tape.
Poor Ryan Getzlaf. He's trying his damnedest, I'll say that.
Right, but I just feel like if you're an internal cap team, are you gonna wait that out? Your team's in trouble.
Yeah.
Can you wait out that contract if you're not gonna spend the money to build around what you have? If you have to stay below a certain point under under your own cap, forget the actual salary cap. I mean, which obviously makes a buyout, because buyout's real money and that hurts. But I don't know. I mean, to me, you have to do something. I think that, having Murray go back behind the bench, I don't think, they won a game, big deal. It's deck chairs on the Titanic.
I really, Hockey Jerk, actually, I'm going to let you go.
Oh, I didn't have anything to say. I was mainly just going to agree with Ian.
Oh, so for me, the Bob Murray thing, this is a great opportunity for him to keep his job as a GM by coaching, because he's basically saying, I'm going to find out what this problem is myself. I think part of it was Carlisle. We completely slammed that signing. I don't know anybody who liked this. I know Ducks fans who didn't even like the signing of bringing back Randy Carlisle. But Randy Carlisle has always been kind of a hard-ass coach, known as a hard-ass coach. And I think also part of it with the talented roster the Ducks have is they got tired of getting yelled at every single night. So them not naming a new coach, basically waiting for Dallas Eakins next year, who is a player-friendly coach. I think this is a great opportunity for Murray to not only assess his roster, but to say, you guys are coaching yourselves the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So, and I want to see who the leaders are on this team now that you're coaching yourselves. And then from there, I know who to build my team around, and the rest of you get the F out.
Word.
Yeah, and it's like we said, with this Ducks team, it's like I said before, there's no reason to believe that they won't be right back in it next year. How much retooling they're going to be doing, it remains to be seen. But I'm looking at a lot of these guys to bounce back, and I think too. I think, like you said, Kevin, when you have a hard ass coach like a Randy Carlisle, it weighs on the players, and it's one of those things where it's like, you wake up and it's like, do I really want to go to the rink today and have to deal with this guy yelling at me again? And so I think him getting fired, in terms of paving the way for them to have a better coach, no doubt. I think honestly it'll be a situation where the players can show up to the rink and not have to be in a sour mood. And sour mood off the ice, it affects your play on the ice. I mean, it's only one game, but the Ducks did win on the shoulders of Kevin Boyle on Wednesday. And I know they're down against Boston right now, but it's only 1-0. There's still time.
Yep. I just have things in the chat. Yeah, I mean Nick Ritchie's overrated.
I agree.
Carlisle's games out of reach, goon it up, coaching style. Yeah, look at Randy Carlisle is he's just a coach where I just feel like his best before date has passed. Like there's some coaches who I think are there's coaches that have been fired recently that I think will definitely coach in the NHL again. I think there's still room for. Yeah. Randy Carlisle isn't one of them. Like if I would not be jumping to bring Randy Carlisle back in. A lot of people. I think that there is some unfairness to Randy Carlisle. Like I think the fact that he was just there along for the ride when they won the cup. Like I don't think that's 100% fair. Yes, he did have just a stupid good defense core. Obviously with the top line of Pronger and Niedermayer, but. Top pair, but I still think I think it's unfair. Like the guy does have a ring, and I think like we've seen stacked teams, maybe even in the NHL, underperform.
Yeah, and that 07 Ducks team. I mean, that was a veteran team. And whether you agree with this or not, veterans kind of have an easier time dealing with hard asses.
Yeah, and I think, sorry, just to go in the chat here, Daryl Sutter would be definitely another guy who I consider best before date passed.
Who is this?
Daryl Sutter.
But I think Daryl Sutter knows that. I think that's why he stepped away.
Right.
And I think Ken Hitchcock knows that too, and he tried to step away, but I think he's letting him,
I mean, he's unretired now twice.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
But he seems so miserable that it's like, yeah, you did it to yourself, Ken.
Alex saying T-Mac to the Ducks. I don't think so. I think Kevin has it right. I think Dallas Eakins is probably going to be the guy that moves behind that bench next season.
I do think McClellan winds up somewhere next year.
McClellan's going to wind up somewhere. I think Michel Therrien's going to end up somewhere again. Like there's guys that have been fired.
Oh my God! I'm sorry, I forgot Michel Therrien existed. Go ahead.
Like there's guys that have been fired that I think are definitely going to get other jobs. I just don't foresee. Like I think that there's some guys that shouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
and if it's not Dallas Eakins, for the love of God, will someone get Sheldon Keefe from the Marlies? Like,
I think with. I do like the idea of Dallas Eakins being behind the bench in Anaheim next year, just because I mean, how many of these young guys have we already talked about? I mean, I couldn't tell you exactly how many years Dallas Eakins has been in San Diego, but I imagine he has some experience with a Nick Ritchie and Andre Kasha, that kind of thing. But also, I mean, Sam Steele.
He's having a great year.
I love Sam Steele. I friend of the show, Craig Button and I actually had a conversation about Sam Steele a couple years ago. Max Jones, I believe, is down there right now.
No, he's up.
He's up. There you go. See, well, the Ducks call up and send down like 100 guys a day.
It's true. Troy Terry's up for like the fifth time.
Troy Terry, and even though he had a very quick conditioning stint, Max Comtois, who I like watching as well. And if you're thinking about tweeting negative things at him, you better not.
Oh man!
Like it's gonna be
Malta at hockey_town.
Yes, it's gonna be like when the Red Wings hired Jeff Blashill, because Jeff Blashill was the coach of the Griffins when they won the Calder Cup 6 years ago. Played with Gus Nyquist and Thomas Tatar and Riley Sheehan and all those guys.
And that's why I can't believe that the Red Wings haven't turned it around.
Yeah.
So there's your buyer beware on Eakins, actually.
As for Todd McClellan, I think
is that on Jeff Blashill though, or is that on Ken Holland?
I don't think it's on Blashill at all. Like
Holland.
I know Rob was grilling him in the chat. I still don't think it. I think it's the same thing with Dave Haxtell. I don't think Dave Haxtell was the problem in Philly. I don't think that Jeff Blashill's problem in Detroit.
I will say too, just jumping back really quick, as for Todd McClellan, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, yes, there's head coaching jobs available, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being an assistant somewhere on like a really good team.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, I think he might need a little massage. I mean, again, you know, and that's another guy who is like, I think now we're seeing like, I'm not saying Todd McClellan's the best coach in the NHL, because he's not. But based on, look, you brought in Ken Hitchcock and nothing changed, right? Ken Hitchcock, coach that, you know, definitely name carries a little more cachet than Todd McClellan. How much, looking at things now, I mean, how much can you really blame Todd McClellan for what happened in Edmonton?
None. I still don't even blame him. I still don't blame him for the Sharks stuff either. No.
Yeah, I think I think if in San Jose it was just him and Doug Wilson just weren't on the same page anymore, and obviously Doug Wilson wasn't going anywhere, so Todd had to.
I'm gonna segue this. There's a reason I'm bringing this up.
Go ahead.
So Minnesota was losing 4-1 and is tied to 4-1 and nearly just went up with under a minute left. So Minnesota is a team that Minnesota was winning 4-1.
Yeah.
And I was mistaken there. They were winning 4-1, almost blew it. And they're the team that is subject to a lot of trade rumors lately.
Yes.
Yeah. You about guys like Eric Stahl. I don't think Jason Zucker's going anywhere, but without Mikko Koivu, who's out for the year, should Minnesota be trying to tank this? And other teams.
Do you mind if I take this one?
Yes. No, I don't mind at all, actually.
Gotcha. So first things first. It's funny you say that, Kevin, because a buddy of mine who's a Minnesota Wild fan literally texted me and said, "Are you effing kidding me right now?" So there you go. But it was, I believe it was yesterday or the day before, the Wild owner went to Paul Fenton, their GM, and said, "Fix this any way you see fit." And I think
whether it costs them a playoff spot or not.
Exactly. And I think Paul Fenton, just based on what we've seen, you know, the Nino Niederreiter trade was out of nowhere, but I still think it was necessary. And I think it's that kind of trading that you're going to see from Minnesota, because as much as I liked Chuck Fletcher's boldness with trades, I think Paul Fenton is more bold. I wouldn't be surprised if even guys who could be a part of the solution, guys like Mikhail Granlund and, you know, a guy like a Jared Spurgeon, you know, a Jonas Brodin, I wouldn't be surprised to see those guys shipped out. I really think outside of Parise, Suter, Dumba, and then, you know, like Eriksson Ek and Cunnin, aside from those guys, as far as I'm concerned, everybody else, you might want to have a duffel bag packed just in case.
Yeah. Well, and talking about the Ducks, I'm going to throw it to you, Ian, in a minute, but talk about the Ducks like needing a changing of the guard with Getzlaf and Perry and Kessel. You know, every year it's the same guys. Like, how many years can Minnesota is always barely making the playoffs every year with Brodin, Spurgeon, Suter, Dumba, but Dumba's injured. Again, same guys. They're all great defensemen, but at some point, maybe you just need to trade one of them just to have some kind of a culture change.
I think, and like Minnesota to me, always like they're always a team where it's like you know how Pierre Dorian went on TV and said, "Well, we're a team." Like that is my definition of Minnesota. Yeah, they're a team. Like I've said this a million times. Like they're the most mediocre team. They're not bad. They're not good. They're kind of just there. And that's been the Wild. Like they don't really, they kind of lack, like, for as far as other teams go, like Minnesota really, in my opinion, lacks in star power.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah. Like Mikko Koivu is like one of their biggest stars, and he's a very good player.
And you know, you have Eric Stahl, who I think, you know, is good, but you know, again, like, because they're just this middle of the pack team that is just there. They don't have, like, you know, they don't have any like big star power at all. Like, in my opinion, you look at, you know, the bottom place teams get all these first round picks, so they have star power. You know, Buffalo has Jack Eichel, Edmonton has Connor McDavid. you know, and then you
And
look
Chicago
at like
has Dylan Strome.
right. Chicago is still a throw, you know, but they also have Patrick Kane. They have Jonathan Tays. You look at, you know, you look at some of the top teams. You know, you got Tampa Bay has Stamkos and Kucherov, and Minnesota just has Mika Koivu.
Well, I will say this in response to that. And you can, those of you in the chat, write this down, take a screenshot, save the date. At some point before he retires, I think Matt Dumba will win a Norris Trophy.
Ooh.
Oh, that's bold.
Secondly, whether or not he comes over to North America remains to be seen. But I think, and I know Kevin will agree with me, if Minnesota can get Kaprizov to come to North America, that will be huge.
That would be huge. Yes, I agree.
I still think that's why Bob Murray was in Russia. I really do. I think he was trying to scout Kaprizov, whatever. Yeah, that guy's friggin' solid.
Yeah, I mean Minnesota. If there's ever been a team that like needs to like, you know, look, they've got good players. Like I think, you know, I like Charlie Coyle a lot, considering, you know, a guy that we traded. I still like Charlie Coyle. I like his game, but he's not a star. Like this team is just so blah. It's just the most blasé team in the world.
Yeah.
And until they change that, you know, look at. I mean, I hate to say it, but you need star power on your team. It's not always going to make. I mean, obviously, you know, Edmonton has Connor McDavid, and they suck. You know, Buffalo has Jack Eichel. They might still miss the playoffs, but you need something. Like this team has nothing. There's no dynamic on this team. It's a boring team to watch.
Yeah, and it's been a boring team. Like since they came into the league, that's been their MO. Like
right. Yeah, it's always been this blasé team, and I feel like it does need to be shaken up, and maybe I hate advocating for tanking, but maybe, you know, maybe just not just making the playoffs might be the best thing for them. You know, being a first round out team,
right,
might be the best thing for them.
Yeah, look at that, and I think Vince mentioned in the chat, and you kind of alluded it to it, Hockey Jerk, and Bruce Boudreau guaranteed a playoff spot this year, a playoff berth this year, and I don't remember all the rest of it, but that was his main point. And I was sitting there thinking, so you can get eliminated in 5-6 games like you did last year? Like where you barely hung in there the whole time, like
exactly.
I just had an epiphany, by the way.
Okay.
I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, you do know it. The Sharks need another player who's cheap. Who's going to be the next Eric Fair this year? How about Eric Fair? He's only making $1 million this season. He's a UFA, and Minnesota's not going anywhere. So why don't we just get Eric Fair back?
Honestly, I mean, I've liked what I've seen from Dylan Gambrell, so I'm inclined to disagree with you. But at the same time, I would not hate that because I loved Eric Fair in Teal.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how Eric Fair's done this season, so I don't know if you know the second time.
He's Eric Fair.
He's done good enough.
In 47
games.
And...
I just can't help it. Like for me, like I just think like Minnesota's in like the worst spot a team could be in. Like they're just the perennial, you know, like Marak was saying in the chat, you know, they're the perennial second wild card seed, crushed in the first round, done. I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting to see what gets moved in Minnesota. I think obviously, you know, then you have some of the other teams that obviously have some big fish that might move around and probably won't just because that's the way things work. You know, obviously you look at Columbus, Bobrovsky, and Panarin. I don't know what you do if you're Columbus though. Like if I'm looking at the standings right now, if I am Columbus, I am third seed in the Metro. So you know, do you trade your goalie and one of your top scorers? It seems like, I mean, yeah, you might lose them for nothing, but see, this is the really hard part. This is why I can't be a GM, because for me, I keep those guys. I'm in the playoffs. Yeah. I think Columbus is a good team. They're I don't know if they're a Stanley Cup favorite, but they have the pieces to make some waves in the East.
Friend of the show, Cam Atkinson. Sorry, I had to get it in there.
Well, that's okay. I mean,
Minnesota just lost in overtime.
Well, there you go. See, because they're the most mediocre team in the NHL.
Yeah.
But hanging on to that second wild card slot. Gosh, that Vancouver could take over of all teams. Oh my God, what has happened? I don't even know. I don't even know hockey anymore.
I will say this. I'm kind of like, the way that I look at it is, since all this drama with Bobrovsky and Panarin, since it's all public, I think that is justification enough to just cut bait and call it a day. That said, I think if you have a legitimate chance at winning the Stanley Cup, which some would argue that Columbus does, I think you got to keep Artemi Panarin. Now, Sergei Bobrovsky and his .903 save percentage have not been very Vezina Trophy caliber this year, while Jonas Korpisalo, yes, he's only started 20 games, but he's at a .901 save percentage. So, if again, hypothetically, if I'm a GM, I'm like, hey, I got a Bobrovsky for you, and I just play Korpisalo and see what happens, because from what I understand, the last few weeks, Korpisalo has been the better goalie anyways.
Right. It's just hard though, because you go in the playoffs and then the playoffs is a completely different animal, right? Yeah. I think Panarin, I agree.
The Capitals start with Philip Grubauer, and look what happened.
Yeah, I think that's a great cautionary tale where they started with Grubauer. They were on their, they were on death's door, and then Holtby went back in, and they go on to win the cup. I think the thing that I agree with what you said about Panarin. I think the thing is, though, is the return would have to be good, and I just don't know who gives you the return you want. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, who's going to give you the return you want going in? Because you want roster players.
Nashville.
Yeah.
Eeli Tolvanen.
Yeah, if they can make it work with Nashville, I do think there's an option there. But to me, I think your best return is trying to win the cup and then trading his rights for something. Even though the something's not going to be much, I don't think the return before the trade deadline is going to be enough to really be fair either. So I think, plus the Blue Jackets are trying to make a fan base happy by saying, hey, we're actually going to go for this, rather than, well, here's another year where I guess it's just not our year. And then,
well, that's the other thing, right? Because you have two things that you have to satisfy as a general manager, right? I mean, you have the hockey side where you obviously have to try and win, but there's also the fan base thing, right? And if you look at, I know I keep referencing Edmonton, but I think Edmonton's a good example of this, where Peter Chiarelli gets fired conveniently around the same time that suite renewals are coming up and season ticket renewals are coming up, and I mean, these things are obviously related. So you do have to sell it to your fan base too. I mean, there's that fan, there's the business side of it where you have to sell tickets, and which brings us to a disaster that just keeps disastering for everyone's amusement, the Ottawa Senators. I mean, how do you, there's no, I'm not saying Duchesne and Stone are both going to get moved, but if you move Duchesne and Stone, A, how do you hit the floor? B, how do you sell that? How do you even, not just give away tickets at that point?
Well, I do just want to say really quickly, every year that Columbus has been in the playoffs, they've lost to the Stanley Cup champion. Chew on that one. Poor guys. With the exception, I should say, with the exception of 2014. Okay. But yeah, Ottawa, I mean, so their owner, 10 new players and then 15 new players after that, it's all well and good. Comes out and says, yeah, we're gonna, I forget what his phrase was, accumulating assets. And then starting in 2021, which is a random start time, they're gonna spend to the cap ceiling.
It's which, after the next lockout or strike.
No, but I will say this, and you look at the Red Wings and you look at the Oilers, spending to the ceiling does not equal winning. No. That said, at this point, I'm trying not to swear because I'm trying to be a good noodle here, but at this point, Ottawa is ass. Okay.
Oh, so you're trying to be a hockey jerk, not a hockey something else.
Yeah, Ottawa is ass. Okay, so like you have to trade these guys. You have to. That said, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if, say, you trade both of them at the deadline. I wouldn't be surprised if one or both of them turn around and come back and re-sign. Honestly. Like, here's your chance. Hello, Mark Stone. Go home to Winnipeg for 4 months and try and win a cup, and then come back. And in 2021, we're going to be spending to the ceiling. Honestly, I would not be surprised. Mark Stone, it's been well documented. Mark Stone loves Ottawa, loves the team, and same thing. Matt Duchene has had a lot of crap flung at him since he landed on the Senators. I mean, there was the whole Uber thing, and he had to defend Borietsky after the video, and he's had to be the company guy. He's getting out of his car in drive-thrus and signing people's hats. Like, he is the company guy. Yeah. So he obviously loves that team. Again, hey, Matt Duchene, go to the Islanders, win a cup, and then we'll have a spot for you. $8 million a year for 8
things I never thought I would hear said this year. The Islanders win a cup.
Oh man, if the Islanders won the cup with Robin Lehner, I might just retire, because I'm pretty sure on the start of the year I said Robin Lehner's not a starter. He shouldn't even be in the league anymore. He should be in the KHL or something.
Oh, man. Robin Lehner, former Senator.
True.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. Like, I think that's an interesting point, because it's something I've never considered. As far as, because it does seem like both guys do love the city, as far as I can tell. But I mean, at the same time, like, I think these guys want to win too. And man, Ottawa is just such a mess, and and it's not going to get better because ownership is brutal. Yeah. And until the ownership situation is resolved, which it never will be, because the NHL just can't unilaterally yank the franchise, as far as I know.
I think if they have an owner who's like legit up to no good, I think they might be able to.
But I mean, Eugene Melnick's just an idiot. He's not, he's just an idiot. I'm sure, but I'm sure he's paying his bills and doing whatever else, right?
So let me ask you this then. How's our dressing room?
It's bad.
Yeah. It's bad. Never gonna get old. But you're right. Like, Ottawa just needs to start over.
Yeah.
Turn it off and back on again.
Ottawa and Edmonton, for that matter.
Rob Iman called the Blue Jackets the Oakland A's of hockey. And it's kind of true, because every year, I mean, Panarin and Bobrovsky up front for first and foremost. But I mean, I do feel like there have been other years where we've heard, well, Columbus isn't going to be able to keep this guy. I'm sorry to hijack the Ottawa talk, but it's just...
That's okay. No, it's good. It's a good. I think it's a good analogy. There are teams like that unfortunately just, it seems like every time their big player comes up, it's like a foregone conclusion they're gone. And I think Columbus has been overly victimized by that, for sure.
But Ottawa could be like that too, in the sense of Melnick has never wanted to spend, and so they've had to move guys like Erik Karlsson, Mike Hoffman, drama aside, but there have been plenty. I mean, Ottawa went to the Stanley Cup Finals 10 years ago, and they were in the Eastern Conference Finals in overtime of Game 7 2 years ago.
That's the part that I just can't wrap my head around. Like, how things have gone to hell from where we are then to now. It's just amazing how a team's fortunes can change so quickly.
Yeah.
Like, jeez. I don't know. It's bad. It's bad. I don't know. I can't think of anyone else. Any other big names you think might move? I'm not sure. I mean, I think Wayne Simmons probably getting moved. That's probably a given. I'm not sure a lot of these big names are going to move. I think there's too many moving parts for them. Because again, I think if you're going to trade a guy like Panarin, you need roster players coming back the other way.
You know who might get traded? I don't know where he go. Jake Allen.
Jake
Maybe
Allen
now's the time for the Blues to pull the Jake Allen trade.
I think they got traded to the KHL.
Like Robin Leonard.
Jake Allen is not good enough to play in the top Russian league. Let's be fair here.
Man.
He's going to play in the Allsvenskan.
If I'm a team acquiring Jake Allen, I'm begging to get Mitch Korn.
I think.
Well, let me hear really quickly. I'm sorry. Let me throw out a name really quick. How about a Gustav Nyquist?
I think he needs a scenery change. That's a good one.
47 points in 58 games, and he's only 7 points away from his career high. Granted, not as many goals as that career high, but he's still a player who has found success playing with Dylan Larkin and Thomas Vanek. But again, same thing with Thomas Tatar last year. He was Nyquist. It wasn't that long ago that he was the young guy coming up and the new blood, and here we are now 7 years later. But God, that feels so long ago. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see Vegas take a gamble again on a Red Wings castaway.
Didn't work out so well last time, but never know.
Well, and look what happened now. Tom Tatar is rocking the Rouge very nicely.
Yeah, he is. And yeah, and Vegas is doing okay themselves. So, I mean, I guess all's well that ends well, but
they just can't score is their problem.
Yeah, I mean, the Red Wings are another interesting team where players can move. I would be interested to see if a team, takes a run at Jimmy Howard, for example, because I think Jimmy Howard could probably stabilize. If you're looking for, if it kind of, Jimmy Howard kind of reminds me of when the Sharks went out and got James Reimer.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
I
like that comp.
Like it would be, I think, a team that just wants that extra assurance, or wants to stop playing their starter to the death before the playoffs. I think Jimmy Howard's a guy that I would definitely look at. Do the Sharks look at Jimmy Howard? I don't think so, but I could
see. Honestly, I said Nyquist in Vegas. I could see Vegas look at Jimmy Howard because Malcolm Subban is not getting the job done, and there's already signs of Marc-Andre Fleury being run into the ground.
Yeah, and they still have oodles of cap space
and draft picks.
Yeah, because I think if Anaheim was in, they would definitely take a look. But because they're not, I don't see why you would make that move. But yeah, Vegas would make a lot of sense for a guy like Jimmy Howard for sure. Let's you guys should tell me how the Barracuda are doing because I don't know.
Not bad, not good.
Yeah, they're really middle of the pack. They've lost first place to the Bakersfield Condors because Bakersfield won 13 in a row, and super exciting game on Monday night against the Roadrunners. Though no score going into the final 2 minutes. Roadrunners get a 1-0 lead with 1:19 left, and then with 44 seconds left, something like that.
I think it was less.
14.6. That's right. 14.6 seconds left. DeSimone shoots the puck through a triple screen on Aiden Hill. And then the Barracuda dominated overtime, had the puck the whole 5 minutes, and then finally won a game in shootout. That was just a really good game and a great ending. So something to build on going into tomorrow's game against San Diego. A doubleheader, Sharks and Barracuda tomorrow. I can't remember which one's which. I think the Barracuda are first at 1:00 though.
That would be correct.
Yeah. And then Monday's the Orange game, the Orange out game.
I would say something about it, but I have a 2-year standing agreement with Kevin that
it's 2 years now? Because I thought
it was March of 2000. No, 2 years ago that this came about.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say.
So I will not say anything.
Yes, I will say on his behalf, it is probably his least favorite promotion of the season, but we're gonna leave it at that because those orange jerseys are awesome.
I'm excited for the orange jerseys. Just Vince G in the chat here, quick. Going back to Edmonton, Jesse Pugliarva's agent telling Sportsnet that he's unsure if staying with Edmonton is the best for his client. I don't think staying with Edmonton is the best for any agent's client right now. Period.
Maybe. Yeah, I think I think Puljujarvi does have to go. Like, just go somewhere. And you just hope that Puljujarvi isn't the new Nail Yakupov.
You don't want Puljujarvi, but at the same time, do you want Puljujarvi to be the next Dylan Strome?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, because
I
like
don't
you
think
said,
Dylan Strome was going to do anything with the Coyotes, though. I think it's because he's in a different system.
But still, I mean, does that's the thing. Does that team? Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. But I still think, like, I don't know, man.
It's a hindsight statement.
Yeah.
No, it's a hindsight statement. I didn't like Dylan Strome to begin with, so this is all a complete shocker to me, and probably not to most people, because I thought he was, terribly overrated. Now he's looking great there for Chicago, but I think it took him going there for that to happen.
well, and he's with Alex DeBrincat again.
Dude,
Alex DeBrincat's the real star of that.
Oh my God, that guy.
Just wait, McDavid's going to be on Chicago, and the band will be back together. And
oh my God, Stanley Cup galore.
And somehow they'll still keep Patrick Kane out of all that too.
Yeah, they'll keep Patrick Kane. They'll keep Taves. They'll somehow still have Seabrook, and I don't even.
They're never getting rid of Seabrook.
I know, that's brutal. Oh God, we could do a whole show on just Chicago.
I put it in the chat, but I want to mention it too. Corey Schneider with his first win since December 2017.
Good.
Yeah.
Talk about bad for Corey Schneider.
Talk about.
Oh my God.
Yeah, everybody talks about mental anguish and getting your head in the game. Ugh, that guy's had a rough go of it, and how many years was he? The only guy doing anything on that team, and now he's majorly struggling. I think a lot has to do with his hip surgery.
Yeah.
But still, shout out to Corey Schneider. I have a puck with him on it, and hopefully I don't have to sell it on eBay.
I'm hoping so bad that Corey Schneider turns it around. Like, it bothers me that it's come to this for him.
Yeah.
Because I think he's an amazing goaltender. Or at least was, and I hope it still is.
That is also, Corey Schneider is also 1 point of the Drew Weber pentagram, so we might want to be careful.
Oh, crap. All right. On that note, then we better get out of here. Thanks. Yeah. Gosh, man, we could talk about the Chicago and Dylan, and we could do a whole nother show on that.
Maybe we should next week.
Maybe we should next week. We'll do our best. I'm happy we did the show. I'm happy we actually all got together to do a show. This has been great. If you want to watch more of us, you should subscribe. You should hit the little dingy button so that you can see when. Oh, OHL sanctions, right? I was going to explain that. Okay.
Wait, please do.
All right. So the Niagara Ice Dogs, I only have like the gist of this story, but the Niagara Ice Dogs have been sanctioned by the OHL for improper recruiting practices. They're not the first team that this has happened to. It's really hard to get nailed for this because it is really hard to get nailed. You have to be really stupid, in my opinion, to get nailed for the league because, look, it's no secret. Obviously, something's up in London because London seems to always get the best players, or or other teams will draft players that are supposed to go, that people think that London are going to go to London just so that they won't report and play in the OHL. It's basically, I mean, it's kind of like, there's only so many things you're supposed to be able to do to try and to lure a player over. Obviously, I don't know the exact details because they haven't really been released yet, but I'm assuming that obviously there's been gifts or monies or something that they've been caught giving out. This happened. Who was it? I want to say it was Oshawa not too long ago. Got nailed with the same thing, or maybe Windsor. I can't remember. But one of the two of them, they got sanctioned. They lost draft picks, and so it's not the first time this has happened. It won't be the last time it happens. It's just people, not sexual favors, obviously. Maybe, I don't know. It's 2019. Maybe there's hookers involved. I don't know. But it's obviously it's a developing story still, so I don't have a ton on this. But yes, they are kids. You're right. That's terrible of us. But anyway, they got basically caught, trying to do things that are outside of the rules to recruit people. You have to be really dumb to get caught, though. So I don't know how Niagara got caught or who blew the whistle on them. I think this happens a lot more than teams get sanctioned for. It's very similar to, you hear schools getting hit with a similar allegation in the NCAA. It's probably incredibly similar to that. Once I have more details, I would be happy to, I'll be happy to share losses. Yeah, I mean, look when the OHL catches you, the cost is steep, man. They nail you hard. They take your picks, and and like Vince saying, with all the stuff they did at the deadline, this team is going to be in trouble for a while. And we've seen other teams get nailed. And we think that there's always teams that kind of seem to always have these rumors around them, London being the biggest, but they never seem to get caught.
And I will say too, they did, I believe Niagara is going to appeal the sanctions on the basis that the employees of theirs who allegedly participated in this no longer work for the team.
Right.
So whether or not that's a strong foundation for an appeal, I couldn't tell you one way or the other.
Generally isn't.
Yeah, I didn't think so. But 2019 and 2021 first round picks, no more, I believe. So
right.
It's tough to see from a hockey perspective because, like you and Vince both said, they loaded up for a playoff run. But at the same time, you got to be stupid to get caught.
You got to play within the rules. I still think they can play if they win. Like, I don't think it affects them in any on the ice thing, because obviously, I feel like they'd still, like, even when Windsor, I think it was either Windsor or Oshawa, I can't remember which one. I'd have to go do a little digging, but I don't recall it affecting their ability to play in playoffs and or the Memorial Cup if they made it that far. I don't think that they would prevent them from doing that, because again, it's still a business, and obviously if you take a team that's of that caliber out of the running, you're just shooting yourself in the foot business wise. So I don't foresee that being an OHL thing. I know that the draft pick penalties, usually the penalties are draft picks and money and stuff, but it usually doesn't affect your on ice stuff. But I could be wrong. I'd have to, like I said, it's a story I have to do a little more digging on. The details are just starting to come out, so maybe next week I can go into it in more detail for sure. So yeah, other than that, final thoughts, Mr. Kevin Lacey.
Okay, I've got 3 things here.
Right.
And as usual, I've already forgotten one of them. So that's still a thing. But first off, I just want to talk about goalie prospects for the Sharks right now. Zach Amond of Rouen-Noranda. In 21 games this season, he was a guy we didn't really know about too much when the Sharks drafted him in the 6th round. But in 21 games this season, he has a 1.85 goals against average and a 928 save percent, or 1.85 goals against, 0.928 save percentage, which is astronomical for the QMJHL.
Yep.
So that's looking real good so far. And actually, I thought he looked really good in camp. I was a lot more impressed with him than I thought I'd be. The other goalie that's been actually doing well in the pipeline this season is Mike Robinson, who's really a maligned 3rd round pick, but he's a sophomore at UNH this year. 25 games, 2.25 goals against, 923 save percentage. I still don't think he's going to be much if he turns pro at all. But hey, maybe we shouldn't write him off just yet. My other thought, since I still can't remember the first one, is Radim Šimić. We talked about him at the beginning of the show. If you missed it, please rewatch on YouTube and all your favorite podcatchers and whatnot. Radim Šimić doing great. He's going to be a great expansion pickup for Seattle in a couple of years. I'm Kevin Lacey. Thank you very much.
Mr. Jerk.
Oh, and I'll be at the Barracuda game on Monday for sure.
Oh, Jesus.
How do you top that, Jerk? How do you top that?
Well, so quick little story time for my final thought. So those of you who followed me for years know that I like to have for every NHL team, I like to have a, I don't want to say favorite player, but just a guy I like to watch or like to gravitate towards from watching their game, whatever. And for Columbus, that guy is Cam Atkinson. Now, over the last, I think, 5 or 6 years, Cam Atkinson has averaged 26 goals a year, which is pretty good considering how you need goals to win games. So, and I, in conversations and in reading tweets, I've just seen a lot of like, oh, the Blue Jackets need to trade Cam Atkinson. He's this, he's that, blah, 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 this, that, the other. The contract sucks. All this crap. So me liking to stir the pot, I throw out a little screen cap of his goals over the last, I believe, 5 or 6 years and say, hey, do your homework on Cam Atkinson before you start mouthing off, essentially. And sure enough, one of the people who liked my tweet, unsolicited, by the way, was Cam Atkinson. So we are now friends, and he's going to be on the pod next week.
Yeah. Hey, Cam, how'd you feel about the Sergey and Artem trades?
If you like hearing about me getting myself into shenanigans on Twitter, you can follow me at hockey_jerk. You know what? Trade deadline, huge, especially for us. The three of us, we like to talk about the NHL as a whole. Kind of beyond the Sharks organization. So don't be surprised if it's very heavy tweets and podcasting and blurbs on the NHL trade deadline. But it's going to be fun, at least for us. We hope you enjoy it as well.
Absolutely. My final thoughts are when the Sharks do good, it's good. And since they've mostly done good lately, things are good. And that means it was a good podcast.
There you go.
There you go. Other than that, guys, obviously, I'll try to give you a little more notice for next show that we're going to go and do this. But I hope that everyone who missed it picks it up on the audio stream or watches it live or not live, but the replay on YouTube, and continues to support our rinky-dink operation. And beyond that, have a good night, guys.
Yeah, more Barracuda talk next week.
Yes.